Right, not guilty anymore. This song, I think, is sort of the theme of my life. Actually, it took 28 years to write this song. I grew up. I don't think it was so much my parents or my family or my church, but for some reason I grew up with this nagging sense of inadequacy and guilt in everything in life. Never a good enough student, son, Christian, never enough quiet times, always too much sin, whatever it was. And it even really crept into my adult life where I would feel guilt as a father, guilt as a husband, never good enough, gone too much, or whatever it was. And I hadn't even done anything, you know? But there was this guilt, and it's obviously not from the Lord, just walking around in condemnation and shame. And was studying John 8, where Jesus, they bring the woman out to Jesus who's caught in the act of adultery. And the village wants to stone her, you know. And so they all have their stones ready, and Jesus, you know, the story, he writes in the sand. And one by one, people start dropping their stones and walking away. And that story changed my life last summer, I think it was. Because for the first time I heard the sound of grace, and it sounded like a thud of stone hitting a dirt floor. And it was like, forgiven, not condemned. And Jesus said, neither do I condemn you. They don't, and neither do I. And it was as if I was that woman there in that moment, and the Lord was letting me hear the sound of grace, condemnation falling to the floor. And what I heard was, you're not guilty anymore. And it's actually really hard to sing that song because I kept breaking up and crying. But there's this psalm in Psalm 3, this verse in Psalm 3, verse 7, where it says, you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory, and the lifter of my head. And I could go on, but basically the Lord took his fingers that spread out the stars in the sky, the psalms say, and he put them under my chin and lifted my head out of self-condemnation, self-absorption, and shame, and lifted him up to hear him say to me, this is what I've done for you. I've taken all that stuff, all that guilt, all that condemnation. It's not from me. You're not guilty anymore. And so to stop living out of guilt and out of shame and start living out of love, joy, peace, freedom, all the stuff that he bought from me, to start appropriating it and to living out of it. So the song sort of has been this 28-year testimony to what he's done in my life, setting me free from all the stuff that's not from him.